Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the Scale for Retail Thursday webinar, which I hope is a fixture in your lives right now, and one that you just feel you can't live without. We do have Christian who will be joining us, just in case you're wondering why there's only two faces on your screen, but he's just having a bit of a bun fight with his fiber internet. But I'm sure he'll sort it out. He's very technical and he'll be with us shortly. And look at that. We're getting people who obviously have attended before and they're very polite and they know to say hello. So hi, Danielle. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Phil. Good to see you here. Hi, Heather. Hi, Kazi. Hi, Ginny. Hi, Ben. Oh, wow. This is amazing. Thank you very much to everyone for being sociable and welcoming, because today we have Emma, who's virtually flown in from, remind me exactly, where is it? Emma?
From Missouri.
Missouri. So the Midwest, right? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, Midwest.
Okay, it's hurricane country as far as I know. Because you get the most violent storms on your continent. I mean, we would just be amazed. But every time I've been to America, we used to go on holiday to Florida an awful lot when my kids were growing up. And sometimes the storms that you would get, just a flash afternoon major electrical thunderstorm that lasted for an hour, which felt like Armageddon to us Brits.
Yeah, we get a lot of interesting weather here, and a lot of places talking about the weather is sort of boring small talk, and here it sort of seems significant, like it is very much a personality and a fixture in our lives. So, yeah.
Well, we love talking about it because we rain in summer and stuff like that. There he is. Did you fix your internet?
It's a bit more stable now, but we'll see.
Okay, great.
They're doing building work next door. Maybe it's messing things up, but I don't know.
That might be. You never know. So we've just been doing small talk about violent weather that Americans seem to enjoy. And I guess we should get started. So for everyone who's here, and it looks like we have quite a number of regulars. Oh, look, we've got Ray from Norfolk. I'm off to Norfolk next week, and somebody else from East Anglia. That's really good. And hello, Saul, his ScaleForEtail family. What can I say? Cool, good. So let's pretty much get started. So Emma might be well known to some of you. I know that you've been on a number of different shows or programs or whatever they're called these days, and that you've percolated around the Amazon community. But I think what we're going to get here for ScaleForEtail is something different and special, because Emma and I talked about not trying to do the same old kind of thing, but to take a slightly different take on how to create just the most amazing copy. So over to you. I'm sure this is going to be an amazing session, and I'm really looking forward to it, because actually today, guess what I'm doing? I'm trying to create a new listing. So this is so topical.
I will be eager to hear how all of these tips help inspire you to hopefully create the best listing you've ever created.
That would, yeah, well, I might need to hand that over to you, but anyway.
So should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yeah, if you can.
Great. Well, I'm so happy and excited to be here today. And the topic may have a slightly negative sound to it, but really I think it can be helpful, rather than having this list of all these things that you should do, it can be helpful to be able to look at things a little bit critically and know where you might be having errors, and then what you can do to fix those errors or prevent them from happening. Because, you know, I think listings are one of those things that a lot of people see as a necessary evil. And they may undervalue the impact that they can have on their business, but it can actually be quite substantial. And it's something that, if you do correctly, can have an ongoing positive impact on your bottom line. So everything from helping to make sure that you're capturing more of the traffic that you're generating from your PPC, to even helping to minimize your return rates. Because if you're doing a great job of describing what your product is, then there's a much more likely case that the right people are going to be buying your product. So there are all sorts of different benefits that can come from a good listing. Just a little bit of background about me. My name is Emma Tamir, and I'm the co-founder of Marketing by Emma. That gentleman to the left of me is my husband, Erez, and we founded Marketing by Emma together in 2016. Since then, we've worked with over 700 businesses from all over the world with their e-commerce copywriting needs. So Amazon listing optimization, website copy, and other types of marketing writing. So let's just dive into things. The first mistake, and I think the reason for this mistake, is probably one of the most, not only common mistakes that I see, but it's something that is really difficult for Amazon sellers in particular to figure out how to do. And that's really not understanding or not doing a good job of properly balancing your keywords with your copy. And so in this example here, we see this survival tool. And if you look, the first 9 words have nothing at all to do with what this product is. They're obviously making a lot of effort to go after these gift sorts of keywords. And while those might have interesting opportunities, it's going in the direct face and going directly against what a customer would want to know when they're looking at a product. If I'm somebody and I'm searching for a tool like this, and I need to skim in so far, and if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see how this title truncates on mobile. And so you'll see that there's almost no information at all about this product on the mobile version. And on the desktop version, there's a little bit more, but it's still, it's not customer centric at all. And so one of the most common questions that I get from people that are either writing a new listing or wanting to revise their listing is how many keywords I should use in my listing, and what keywords to use, and all of those sorts of things. And I think the reason for the focus on how many keywords is because a lot of people feel more comfortable in the analytical side of things. And there's also this assumption made that people aren't reading. And so with those two things working against you, you can really easily create a title and bullets that look similar to this, where you're doing very little to provide meaningful information to the customer. And I would argue that also these keywords that they've chosen are not really even the most fitting keywords that they should be going after, particularly in the front end of their listing. So before you ever get to writing, you need to take some time and create a really solid keyword list. And a really solid keyword list has a few things. One, it's well researched, so you're not just guessing a bunch of random words that you think might describe your product. Or like a lot of times I'll see somebody just take the root word that's the most general way to describe their product, and then they'll just put some different phrases after it. But if you go and you search that, you see that nobody's searching those terms. So you want to make sure that you have a well-researched list, but after you've done your research, you need to make sure to also be analytical. So it can be really tempting to just go after those high search volume keywords without paying any attention to the level of competition or relevancy, or even in the case of this first bullet here, which is that same product that we were just looking at, you'll see they've dedicated their first bullet to communicating why this is not what, I guess I spoke ahead of myself, not why this is a great gift, but that this is a great gift. And then they've gone on to use every single gifting occasion in the body of this bullet. Never mind that they're not explaining why this is a great gift, but they're simply telling us that for any type of man in our life, this is good for any kind of gift giving occasion. And so not only is the keyword selection sloppy, but it is also not helping to communicate anything meaningful to make me feel more confident about making a purchasing decision. So if they wanted to go after these gifting keywords, then the bullet should really have a balance between those keywords, but also helping communicate why this is such a great gift. Is it because you don't want to give another gift that's going to end up in the back of somebody's closet? And this is one of those things that nobody would ever have thought to purchase for themselves, but had they chosen to purchase it, they would absolutely love it and find all of these amazing ways to use it. Whatever the case may be, you need to be thinking about all of those things. So as you're selecting your keywords and as you're putting together your list for your copy, you also need to be thinking about what words will fit naturally and make sense when you add them into your listing. So let's see here, best personalized gifts. This isn't a personalized gift. There's nothing personalized about this gift at all. So that's very odd, doesn't make sense. I would be confused. Reading this could potentially even misdirect me if I am trying to find a personalized gift and thinking, oh, great, maybe I'll have the opportunity to engrave this afterwards. But there isn't that opportunity. And so you could even be potentially leading people into a mistaken purchase that then is going to lead to a return. So making sure that you're being really thoughtful about your keyword list, and then don't feel like you have to include every single keyword into the front end of your listing. So your title, your bullets, and your description should have a balance between the keywords that you're using and then that copy that's helping to communicate what your product is, why it's such a great fit for your customer, the problems it's solving, and all of those other things that we're going to be discussing shortly. So if you can't fit them all in, it's okay. You have the back end where you can be putting some of those other keywords. So with your title is much more of a puzzle than pardon me about that. Your title is much more of a puzzle. So in this case, if you're looking at the unique birthday gifts for men, dad, if we were to say 9-in-1 survival tool, and then do a little bit more keyword research on what those words that we'd want to include are, and then have it be very clear what all of those 9 tools are, save unique birthday gifts for men for later on in the bullets if we find it relevant. And so then trying to fit maybe 1 to 2 keywords per bullet, but not getting stuck on how many you should definitely add, and just instead thinking anytime that you want to refer to your product, use a keyword there. So if you have a sentence and you want to say this product does this, then when you're thinking where this product would go, you look at your keyword list, you find one that fits grammatically into that sentence, you plug it in, and you move on to the next one. So the next mistake, and these first two are sort of those foundational things that I like to think of your listing like a skeleton, and then on top of that you put all the flesh and clothing on to make it look good and attractive and exciting and engaging. But if you don't have great SEO and if you don't have proper mechanics, then those two things will always get in the way of being as successful as you could be otherwise. So attention to detail is of utmost importance when you want to look good. If we look at this example, we will see that all of these underlines are areas that are either incorrect grammar, incorrect spelling, odd language, or maybe kind of manipulative language. And in all of these cases, they are chipping away at their credibility as a brand, but they're also chipping away at their reliability of every single thing that they are writing here. So as I'm looking at this listing from a customer's perspective, I may not see this and think, oh yes, this is definitely, look at all those errors. They should correct this, this, and this. It's not that a customer is always having that active of a reading and looking for grammar, but when they come across this odd phrasing, it may give them just a moment to pause, and you don't want to do that. So you have to understand that your listing is acting as your salesperson. And so if you have a listing that looks like this, that it has sloppy writing and poor photos and doesn't have the attention to detail that it should, it's the equivalent of having a salesperson representing your business who just rolled out of bed. So even if they have the most amazing product to sell, people are not going to be as open and receptive and trusting of what that salesperson is saying because they're not presenting themselves in a way that has honor and dignity. So your listing is there. It's one of the only ways that you have to communicate with your customers. And so you want to make sure that if your customer is going to take the time to read your listing, that you don't give them an opportunity to have any of those feelings of lack of trust or questioning if what you're saying is true. So another thing that this listing is doing wrong that doesn't necessarily relate to grammar or mechanics or anything is if you look at this bottom bullet, by purchasing our dog paw washing cup, you help us saving the stray dogs. Aside from the fact that this is grammatically incorrect, it's also using a tactic that's helping suggest that your purchase is helping to contribute to some charity, so that you're contributing to their philanthropic ambitions. And because it's written so poorly and because it's so vague, I don't think anybody would be convinced that your part of your purchase is actually going towards helping save stray dogs, whether or not it was written in proper English. And so this is a little bit of an exaggerated example, but it's something really important to keep in mind, which is these sort of salesy tactics, people see through them. And so even if all of this was written better, but they're just vaguely talking about how a random unidentified part of your purchase is going to help animals, that's not convincing. And if it doesn't go along with your brand story, and if you don't provide some convincing details, then all it does is it is going to push customers away rather than help convince them about the good nature and spirit of your company. And this isn't the only type of sales tactic that can be working against you. So a lot of times I will see that when people are not experienced writing their own sales copy, they start to try to think about what does good marketing writing sound like? And a lot of times what that ends up coming out as is that really over the top, exaggerated language that is either over promising, is in some way just using really over the top language. And first of all, most customers are more sophisticated than that type of language, and they see right through it, and it's not convincing to them. But also, you put yourself into a problematic situation when you make really big claims that you can't necessarily support. And so earlier when we were speaking about how a good listing can even help to minimize your return rates, that is one of the main things that you should be thinking about. Is while it can be really tempting to say, this is the best at this, or this is indestructible, or whatever type of product you're selling, saying it's the absolute top at all of these different things. And while you can definitely do a lot to speak to the positive qualities of your product, going overboard can put you in a really problematic situation, can expose you to more negative reviews, and can even threaten the health of your account, because if you're having too many returns, you might get your listing suspended or have to deal with other issues. And one of the things that Amazon is going to want you to do is they're going to want you to revise your listing and make sure that you're not making any claims that you can't actually back up. So make sure that when you are writing about your listing, or pardon me, about your product and your listing, that you're doing so in a way that isn't trying to sell your product as better than what it is, or capable of doing things that it's truly not. And I know that's very tempting, and it may seem counterintuitive to even encourage you to, for example, mention some of the things that it's not as good at. And that may sound a little bit scary, like, whoa, why would I say that some people might not be a good fit for this product? But in fact, by doing that, by saying to some people, this may not be for you if, and not necessarily in those exact words, but again, helping to connect with the right customers rather than just any and everybody that comes to your page, will go a long way to building trust, both with the people that are the right fit, but also with the people that are the wrong fit, because you're saving them a lot of hassle of needing to purchase a product, get it home, get excited, open it up, realize that it doesn't suit their needs and have to send it back, or use the product, have a bad experience, write a negative review, and completely swear off your brand. So you want to be thinking about more than just those short-term immediate sales, but those long-term relationships. And so even if you're not making a sale because it's not the right fit, you've made a step towards developing a more positive relationship with that customer, who may then be eager to see what other products you're selling, or will keep an eye out if you release an updated model that does incorporate some of these things that your product isn't currently capable of doing. So double, triple, quadruple check your work. It can be really easy. Even the most experienced writers make mistakes. If you don't have access to an editor, there are still a lot of things that you can do to make sure that you're not putting anything out there with errors. So you can read it out loud. You can also have other people read it, even if they're not experts, and ask them, does this make sense? You can use tools like Grammarly that will help to find some of those stray or missing commas and other types of grammatical things that we may have forgotten since we were in school however many years ago. And another thing that's less about grammar but is really important to be thinking about is selecting the right type of vocabulary for your product, but also for your customer. So if you are selling to somebody that is a beginner with whatever type of product you're selling, like let's say that you're selling some sort of, it's right in front of me, so we'll say a microphone. You're selling a microphone, and this microphone is really for beginner podcasters and people that don't have a lot of technical knowledge. And so for them, if you're using a lot of high level audio language, that may make them feel like they're completely out of their league with this product, and that perhaps this is a more advanced microphone than what they are looking for and need just to see whether they like podcasting to begin with. However, if you're selling a podcast mic that is really for professionals that want the very best sound quality, that it's probably not their first microphone. They have a greater sense of what they do and don't like and what they're looking for. And they have some of that more developed knowledge about how a microphone works and the types of terminology associated with it. Then if you're not including that language, it would actually make them think, okay, well, this is probably more of a beginner microphone and it's not the right microphone for me. So you want to make sure that you're matching the language that you're using to the product and to the customer. So another example could be if you're selling a baby item and you're not clear about what type of parent you're selling to. Well, different types of parents are going to respond to different types of language. There are some parents that will really love that very cutesy, traditional type of language and marketing. But there's also, for example, millennial parents who they have two working parents in the household, and they are less about fluff and more about functionality, and they want science instead of those traditions passed down through generations. And so they're looking for a very different type of language and marketing style than what you would find with those more traditional types of parents. And so being really clear about who you're writing to is so, so important. And I think that's one of the things that can also make it a lot easier when you're going to actually sit down and write, because it can be really intimidating when you are trying to write any piece, whether it's an email or a listing or what have you. And at first, everybody has to start with a blank page. And it's like, okay, what do I write? Where do I start? And having a really clear idea of who it is that you're trying to speak to will make all of that so much easier. And it will make it so that you have a clearer idea of what you're trying to communicate, but also how you need to communicate that in order to be effective. Because we all have natural skills with those sorts of things. And we do that all the time when we're interacting with people, whether it's over the phone or in person. But somehow you forget that when you're sitting and staring at a screen. And so you want to be really mindful of who you're talking to and also who you are. So I chose this picture because a lot of times you see businesses and they don't have a clear sense of who they are as a brand. And so then they just do what they think that they're supposed to do when they're in the particular niche that they're in. But they may really be a sausage that's just putting on the outfit of a banana, or perhaps they're a banana and they need to change their insides to be a banana instead of a sausage. I know that this is probably a little bit of a weird analogy, but I hope that it visually represents what I'm trying to communicate, which is... It gives me a chuckle, if nothing else. So I love Seth Godin. If you're not familiar with him, he's a marketing legend. He's written many books. He's been around for a long time. He's had many businesses. And I love this quote: almost all of the growth that's available to you exists when you aren't like most people and when you work hard to appeal to folks who aren't most people. And I think why this is particularly important with people that are selling on Amazon is that so many products are competing against products that are virtually identical. They may even be manufactured in the very same factory. And so what that means is that your choices as a brand and how you present your brand may be some of the only ways that you have to differentiate your product from all of the other ones out there. And that's a lot that you can do, but it means that all of those choices have to be really thoughtful so that you're not just blending in with all the tens or hundreds of other products that are identical to yours. So let's take a look at these two coffees here. I think sometimes these side-by-sides are really helpful. So on the left, we have Melita Buzzworthy coffee. It's a high caffeine ground coffee. And on the right, we have Black Rifle Coffee Company, CAF. Melita is a coffee company that's been around for a long time, and they also have a presence on Amazon. And Black Rifle Coffee Company is a much younger, newer coffee company. And Amazon is one of their primary channels, sales channels. So let's look at the listings themselves. You'll see that this Black Rifle coffee is asking for more than twice as much per ounce as the Melita. So that in itself is pretty amazing because they are really using their branding, and perhaps they also have higher quality beans and some other things like that. But a lot of that increase in price is because they've done a really good job with establishing who they are as a brand. And so people are willing to pay more money because they're really excited about what this brand is doing. So if we look at Melita on the left, they're not necessarily doing anything wrong. It's just very much focused on them, and it's very bland. And coffee is a very competitive space on Amazon, or anywhere for that matter. And a lot of people are purely purchasing whatever's on sale that day. So if you are trying to stand out and really trying to not only get that initial sale, but to have somebody want to continue to purchase your products, then you need to make enough of a connection so that customers remember, yes, I loved that coffee. I'm running low. I need to order some ASAP. What's also really interesting about this is Black Rifle Coffee Company is actually making some mistakes with how they're presenting themselves in their listing, at least in my opinion. They're really wordy. I'm not a big fan of emoji usage. I think it overall cheapens your brand and your product. But what's really interesting when you've done a great job of branding is that customers will be forgiving of some things. So you can get away with whether it's not having the perfect listing, like in this case with Black Rifle Coffee Company, or even a product that doesn't function as well as another product similarly would do. So like, let's think about natural deodorant. Most natural deodorants, from what I've heard and from what I've experienced, are not nearly as long lasting as traditional deodorants. And they are also, they're probably not just going to do as good of a job. You may get a little funky throughout the day. However, there are some very successful natural deodorant brands that sell for 3, 4, even 5 times the amount of your typical drugstore, or I think in the UK you say high street. Is high street the right word?
High street is like Main Street. We'd have a pharmacy rather than a drugstore.
Okay, so yeah, then that, and now I lost my train of thought by trying to use the proper term. Okay, so it's substantially more expensive than what you would just buy out of the store. But people are willing to pay that premium for a deodorant that doesn't function on the core principles of what a deodorant should be, doesn't function as well. But because they've done a great job of branding, and because they've really tapped into those concerns that customers have about not wanting to use certain types of ingredients or harm the planet or any of those other types of concerns that these companies are addressing, they're able to grab a really loyal fan base that is spending $15 for a stick of deodorant that they're then having to reapply multiple times a day. So one of the things that I think Black Rifle Coffee Company has done such a good job of is they've made who they are and their why really, really clear. You see in the first bullet, house roasted fresh blends of freedom. They are a veteran-owned company, and they're really proud of that. And so that's something that for people that are either veterans themselves, they have family members that are in the military, or they just want that sense of patriotism, then this coffee is appealing to them. So you'll see Melita, again, their A+ content, it looks pretty good, but there's really nothing about this product page that it makes you get a sense of who Melita is, why this coffee in particular is so great. It's sort of like if you buy a picture frame and you keep the stock picture in the picture frame and you never put your own picture in there. So they're playing it very safe here. And as a result, they're just very generic. People are not going to be excited by this sort of copy, and they're not going to develop that sense of brand loyalty that you would see with Black Rifle Coffee Company. So this is their A+ content. And what's really fascinating about this is they only have one module dedicated to the coffee itself. All of the rest of the content here is about their brand. So you have that at the very top, a picture of their whole team talking about their family and what they're committed to doing. You have then a message from the owner and who he is, and that he's a veteran himself, and why he's doing what it is that he's doing. Then you have just a little bit about the coffee, and then they go into their mission, their culture, and their brand. And so this is a really fantastic way for them to sell not just their product, but their brand, to develop those customer relationships, to drive those repeat purchases, or perhaps even if, this coffee is a high caffeine coffee that's medium roast, but as they say, with an aggressive flavor. Well, perhaps I'm looking for this high caffeine coffee because that's what I need to get my day started, but maybe my husband doesn't need such a jolt. I think what they're doing is really cool. So now I want to go and look at what other roasts they have, and I'll get a roast for him to make his coffee with as well.
I think the fundamental thing here is, and you can see it even with the bullet points from the couple of slides before, is that the Melita brand was presenting a product to you, and it reads, and it's like it's an interesting product. And you read these bullet points, the 5 bullets on the left there, and that's a product, and it's well presented. But you read the ones on the right, and it's like you're in the guy's kitchen, and he's just giving you a cup of coffee, and he's just talking to you about the coffee and why he loves it so much, and why that coffee's in that cup, and you feel like it's a person talking to you. And they just double down on that in the A+ content, because you're buying from people, and people buy from people. And
exactly.
That's Melita is showing you product stuff, and here's the cut and paste products description, and Rifle is saying, like, here we're people, we're doing the stuff because we believe in it, and here's the coffee that comes out of that process. And if you like us, you relate to us, you want to buy from us, this is what you buy. Right.
And they're making a bold choice with all of these things, because
Absolutely.
There are also people, I'm sure that, well, I'm not sure. There is a lot of tension in the United States right now around some of these topics. And so that means that by being this bold about being a veteran-owned company, they're probably going to push some people away that don't feel drawn to a brand that's so bold about this. And so it can be a little bit scary to make some of those decisions, but what you're doing is you're investing in really creating a long-term relationship with those customers and helping to drive those repeat purchases. Because obviously it's great to make a sale, but it's even better to make a sale that will then lead to many repeat purchases. So Melita is kind of the corporate version of things. It's the equivalent of walking into a chain restaurant that feels identical no matter where you go. And so there are people that will be really attracted to that. But there are also those really cool restaurants that you walk in and there's something special and different, and you love every single detail that they've hand selected to communicate who they are. And that's the restaurant that you're most likely going to be raving to your friends about. So it's not even just that you're helping to create a long-term customer, but you're also helping to create those raving fans that can't get enough of what it is that you're doing and that want to tell everybody about it. So building your brand identity is not it's not something static. It's not something that you do once and then you're done and you never have to go back to it. Your brand identity is similar to your own personal identity, and that there's always going to be deeper levels that you can dig to, but also that as the world changes, your brand will grow and mature and change as well. And so whether you are just contemplating launching your first product, or you've been selling in retail for many years and now you've been selling in e-commerce for a long time, regardless of where you are, it's worthwhile to have a regular practice of thinking about some of these things and then making sure that everything that you're putting out there is aligned around your brand identity, so that you're not creating this mismatch experience. Because what if you're looking at Black Rifle and their listing is really, really clear about who they are, but then what if we were to go to their Facebook page and you see a bunch of these kind of cheesy inspirational quotes on really generic backgrounds? And so then it would be obvious, okay, they hired some social media management company. They're not at all connected to what this brand is and what their mission is. And that would actually potentially turn a lot of customers off. It maybe would seem like they're selling out, or they've lost their way, or they've lost who they are at the core. And so you want to make sure not only that you have clarity about this, but that there is a continuity about how you're presenting yourself wherever that is. So whether it's your listing to your packaging. So when we were speaking about the baby products and you have those different types of parents and you want to sell to a millennial parent that has 2 working parents in the household and they're all science, if your packaging is really pastel and traditional, gendered colors, for like blue for boys and pink for girls and cutesy font, they may be turned off by that type of packaging. So that even if your listing is really honed in, your packaging is painting a different picture that may start to create a disconnect that is going against you. Whereas if you had a really smart packaging with either gender neutral colors or even just something that's very different from what you would expect to see from a traditional baby company, and you included an interesting fact or some other types of things that are more in line with what those types of customers care about, then suddenly you're changing something that's a little disposable piece that's getting in the way from them being able to use your product into something that's helping to cultivate that relationship a little bit more, so that they remember who you are when their friend is having a baby and they're asking for recommendations about whatever type of product it is that you're selling. So first, one of the exercises that can be really helpful in doing this is to create a brand persona. And so what I mean by that is truly to personify your brand, to think about if your brand was a person in the world, what would they look like? How would they speak? Would they have a witty sense of humor? Would they be no nonsense? What type of clothing would they wear? What type of Instagram influencers would they follow? What would be their favorite television show? What's their favorite weeknight meal? Those sorts of details can be really helpful in taking this arbitrary idea and then helping to channel how you should communicate as a brand, how you should represent yourself visually. And then it can also be really helpful whether you have an internal team that you want to align around something, or you have, how to handle different types of customer service issues, or even you're hiring a contractor and you want to make sure that they do exactly what it is that you want. By being able to communicate some of these things clearly, it helps to align everyone on the same page so that no matter who's working on it, they have a clear sense of how they need to be representing the brand and what that should look like. In addition, honing in on your mission, we see that the Black Rifle Company did a fantastic job of that. Their mission is painted all over their listing from top to bottom. You may not have as bold of a mission as they do, and your mission may not be something that you necessarily need to weave in to your entire marketing effort like they've done, but it's still something that you want to be clear about, and it can help you to make choices even if it's not spelling out exactly what your mission is. You also want to clarify your story, if nothing else, just for yourself. And again, maybe parts of that story would be interesting to share with your customers, but even if it's not, you can still find a way to incorporate some of those storytelling elements into the marketing that you're doing. Being clear about what you stand for. So what are those things that you are completely unwilling to compromise on, that you say, this is who we are, and if you don't like that, that's okay. What makes you special? And then how can you differentiate yourself? So the Black Rifle Coffee Company, their differentiator has very little to do with their coffee and has everything to do with who they are as a brand. So don't feel like you can't differentiate your product just because it looks like everybody else. Instead, you have to get a little bit thoughtful and introspective and be thinking about what is the brand that you want to be, and then how can you present that in a different and engaging way that's going to clearly differentiate yourself from everybody else out there that's just trying to be exactly the same and then comes across as very generic. And also, on a side note, whenever you're shopping, just from the customer perspective, it can be really frustrating when you are trying to make a purchasing decision and you're trying to compare 5, 10, 20 products that are all identical. It's you look at them and the price is pretty much the same. The features seem pretty much the same. The reviews are similar. And you're sort of like, I'm trapped in this place of indecisiveness. And I don't know how to weigh one against the other. I feel like I feel this way every time I'm shopping on Amazon as a customer. So if you're able to differentiate yourself, what you're doing is you're helping to make that choice much easier for people that feel like they don't have any real way to make that decision. So it can even help with some of that decision fatigue that I'm sure we've all experienced from time to time. So the next thing, we have a clear idea of who you are as a brand. So now we need to be clear about who your customers are, and making sure that everything that you're putting out there is focused on your customers, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be deciding whether to purchase your product or not. And so it doesn't matter how great your product is or how wonderful your brand is. If you're just saying me, then people aren't going to be excited by that. So in the case of Black Rifle Coffee Company, even though they're talking about who their brand is and what their story is and what their mission is, they're doing it in a way that is very much focused on helping the customer to rally around that mission and to feel a part of it. So they're not presenting it just to boast and to talk about how philanthropic they are with their charity work and how great they are as a veteran-owned business. They're sharing those things so that the customer can feel like they're part of that story and they're contributing to a company that they feel really excited about. So in preparation for this presentation, I wanted to see what the #1 pet supply product on Amazon was. And this product is #1 in pet supplies, also #1 in something else. And it's closest competitor is number 3,098 in pet supplies. So there's a pretty big difference between the two. And I intentionally blocked these out because I wanted a little bit of the surprise factor. And I want you all to think for just a moment about what this mystery number one selling in the US pet supply product is. Because I definitely would not have guessed it. The number one pet supply is a poop bag. It is a biodegradable poop bag. And so that's selling over cat litter, over treats. It's really pretty impressive to me because you don't have to restock them that often. And why I was excited enough about this that I felt it worthwhile to include in a presentation and to be talking about poop bags now for the next few minutes is because a lot of times I have people come up to me and say, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not selling an exciting product. So how am I supposed to, how am I supposed to do these things that you're talking about? It's very basic. There's no way that I can really do anything special with it. And I would argue that there are definitely still things that you can do. And I think that this listing does such a great job of demonstrating that. So on the right, we have these earth-rated dog poop bags. They have 27,000 reviews. That's insane to me that over 27,000 people are reviewing a poop bag. On the right hand, we have Glad poop bags. So this is a very large brand, and they are coming nowhere close to this earth-rated company that I've never even heard of before. And so they look, they don't look all that different when you're looking at the two images and the titles, but you see very quickly that there's something different happening when you look at their bullets and at their images. So Glad's very basic. We're feeling something very similar to what you have with Melita, where it just feels very corporate and basic. Whereas on the left-hand side, this earth-rated brand is kind of just acknowledging the unpleasant task that dog owners have to deal with. And they're embracing that and they're addressing it head on. So they have really great photo text. I don't know how clearly you guys can read this, but all of this photo text, I have a dog, and this addresses things that I definitely would be so eager to know about. It says easy to separate and open. Sometimes it can be really difficult to rip the bags from each other. They also have a redesigned easy lift sticker, which is another thing that it's just a tiny little detail, but every single time that I'm trying to separate that sticker off of my roll, I always tear the first bag because the sticker gets stuck, and it's always the first bag needs to get thrown away. So the fact that they've taken not only the steps to make those little design changes, but that they're also communicating it in a very visual way, it goes a long way. Their bullets are succinct, to the point, addressing customers with a little bit of sense of humor, which I think is also very well suited for a product like this. Glad's, we go into their waste management products built with Glad level strength and innovation. I mean, that just sounds like the most corporate mumbo jumbo nonsense I've ever heard of. And it doesn't really do anything to win me over as a customer. Their A+ content, just like Melita's, looks very good, but doesn't have much substance to it. I'm not really certain why they need to show us an infographic series of how to use their bags. I think that's a pretty intuitive product that anybody can figure out independently, but they found that necessary. And then they use 2 whole sections to show all of their different products. And these comparison tables can be a great way to help show off some of your other products, but there's a good and a bad way to do that. So let's say that they have some different strength bags, or they have, like they have some that come with the dispensers and all of these different things, but you see that they make it really confusing to try to compare all of these next to each other, and it's too much. We don't need unscented and tropical breeze. Like they could have pared this down a little bit more into one table for far greater effect. We don't need the full roster of all of their products. And this is Earth Rated's description. They don't have A+ content, and it's not hurting them because they are the #1 best seller in pet supplies. So whether they're brand registered or they just don't feel it necessary to invest in A+ content, probably they would do even better if they had A+ content, because I know they would also do a good job of it given what's written here. But they've done a very clear job of addressing exactly what customers want to know when they're buying a product that they're going to need to use for probably one of their least favorite parts of their days. So put your customers first. Identify what their interests are. So think about, why would somebody be purchasing a product like this? Well, that's fairly obvious. But what are those things that people care about, and how can you make sure to address those in an upfront and engaging way? Also have a very clear idea about their fears, their worries, their problems, their concerns. Obviously, Earth Rated has taken this to a much deeper level. They're not simply addressing those details with their copy and their marketing. They've gone so far as to address those with their design, and I'm sure that that's one of the reasons they have so many raving fans. Then, just like you did with your brand, create a customer avatar. So get a very, very clear sense of who your customer is. So if you're just saying, my customer is a dog owner, then that is not going as deep as you should go. If your customer is a dog owner, then that leaves a big wide range, and you're not going to be able to make some of those specific choices that you need to make, both with your product design and with your marketing writing. So in Earth Rated's case, they are biodegradable poop bags. So just the fact that they're biodegradable means that they've identified that their customers are people that are mindful of the waste that they're creating, and they want to try to minimize that. Not all customers are going to care about that, and not all customers are going to want to pay a premium about that. They've then taken it so far to make the inner roll recyclable as well. So they're doing all of those things that they know that their customers will care about, and that goes a long way and may even make people want to spend a couple extra dollars for something that is just going to be thrown immediately into the trash can. So thinking about what's important to them and what they're going to get excited about. Mistake number 5, 1,000 is too many words. And this is the last, I believe this is the last main section, but you want to be thinking about your imagery and how you can really use your imagery to the best of its ability. And when I say 1,000 is too many words, I've never actually seen a customer or a client or anybody put 1,000 words into a picture. But there's that expression that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so the reason that I wanted to mention that is because you don't know what 1,000 words somebody's going to be bringing to the table when they're looking at a picture. So if we look at this picture, for example, you'll see there are 4 people. They're walking in this mountainous environment. It looks really great and inviting. And I might look at this and start thinking about the summer trips that my family took to Montana. And then it makes me think about that time that we saw a bear. And then I'm wondering about that stuffed bear that I bought for my friend's son. And then my mind is far away in some other place. And you might be looking at this photo and you might be feeling disappointed because it's reminding you that you had to cancel your long-awaited trip that you had planned for going to the mountains. And then somebody else is going to look at this and see, oh, wow, that's a beautiful sunny day. And I've been sitting at my computer all day. And after I finish up what I need to be doing, I need to go outside and take a walk. And so what that means is that we all have these stories that we're bringing to anything that we're looking at or engaging with. And so by leaving a photo to speak for itself, you're allowing your customers to call the shots and to decide what it is that they are taking away from that image. So don't simply take a nice photo, put it up there, and hope that it will do the talking for you. Make sure that you really control the message. So use words to supercharge your photos. The fewer words you can use, the better. So don't make these elaborate infographics that have a bunch of different circles and all this text that it looks messy, and it also most likely is going to require some zooming to read. You have to be thinking about both how your listing is coming across on mobile as well as on the computer. So no zooming. Think about really creating an ad for a magazine, and those great ads that have a beautiful image and then just a little bit of text that immediately helps you understand what that ad is all about. And it may not even be directly speaking about the product itself, but it's helping to create an experience. And what's really great with infographics on Amazon is that you have a lot of different images that you can create. And so whether somebody's not much of a reader and is just skimming through your photos before scrolling down to the reviews, or they are looking at things in more depth, your photos can become a great space to communicate some of your key benefits and also to help clarify some of those other points of confusion or details that somebody would need to know, and then build that excitement to get people eager to purchase your product. So think about how you can evoke emotion, paint a picture and an experience of what it's going to be like to use this product, and also obviously just really controlling the message. Now you might be wondering why I have these images here from this KitchenAid mixer. And this is a real missed opportunity for a couple of reasons. One is there are these two images here of these cupcakes and a pie, and they all look quite delicious. And if they'd used a little bit of text, then they could really get my appetite eager for all of the delicious baked goods that I'm going to be making. But you'll see they also have included a picture with this attachment to the KitchenAid, which is a zucchini spiralizer. And that's pretty cool. That means that after I've eaten all of my baked goods, I can make some zucchini noodles and feel a little bit less guilty about all of the indulgence that I've been treating myself to. But the mistake here is that this product does not actually come with a spiralizer. So they are giving a picture that if I was a customer, could easily assume that this product came with that attachment already. And then I would be very disappointed to find out when I got this product home that it didn't have the spiralizer in it, particularly if that was one of the reasons why I was buying this particular mixer from Amazon versus somewhere else. However, if they'd used just a little bit of text, what they could have done is they could have helped me get excited about some of the other attachments that they sell, because they sell many different attachments for this tool. And so not only would they have potentially helped to minimize my disappointment at not receiving a spiralizer, but they may actually be able to upsell this attachment and some of their others to increase the value of the entire purchase. So it could go from a disappointment to actually an even better sale. But that's just a missed opportunity here because they didn't go that extra step to communicate clearly what this picture is really trying to show. So if we go back to that image that we looked at before, and you think about adding just a little bit of text here, in this case, quench your thirst, feed your appetite for adventure, then you might notice that one of the people, in the middle, is holding a water bottle. The water bottle is by no means the focus of this picture. However, it doesn't have to be. Now we're all on the same page of what this image is trying to communicate. And so even though it's not making the product the star of the show, it's doing a really compelling job of helping to communicate the type of experiences that I can expect when I purchase a water bottle like this. And the last mistake, don't tell them what it is, but rather why they need it. It's very easy when you're writing about your product to just explain it without really going into detail about why it matters. So let's compare two listings side by side. We have this Tarte Shape Tape Concealer against the e.l.f. Camo Concealer. The e.l.f. Camo Concealer is much cheaper than the Tarte Shape Tape. The Tarte Shape Tape is one of the top concealers out there. I think they say that one sells every 12 seconds or something crazy like that, but it is number 121 in concealers on Amazon and number 31,000 something in beauty. So it is not performing as well as it could be on Amazon, whereas e.l.f. is the top concealer. If we look at these two, Tarte is just kind of giving us some facts about what this product is and is doing very little to communicate why this product is that top product that we should be running out to the store to purchase. So e.l.f. is telling us that we get 16-hour wear. I don't think that Tarte is saying anything about how long this lasts, even though it's supposed to be a very long-lasting concealer. There's really no mention of that, and that any customer would probably be one of their top concerns with something that they are wanting to purchase to cover something that they feel insecure and uncomfortable about, and they want to know that when they put it on their face that it's going to be there and last throughout the entire day. So if you look at all of these bullets, you'll see that they're very clear. Each one is around a specific point, and it makes it much easier for the customer, if they have a particular purchasing criteria, to also look and see what details they need and where to find them. So if they want to make sure that it's not formulated with parabens, you see the fourth bullet talks about free from. And so I see that and I know exactly where I need to go. So e.l.f. is doing a really great job of giving me all of those important details, of organizing it really well, and also communicating who they are as a brand. They're talking about that they want to make beauty accessible for everybody by creating really great products that are at an affordable price. Tarte is not giving us any of that. You'll see, as I mentioned, Tarte is one of the best sellers on Ulta Beauty, which I don't know if you have Ulta outside of the US, but Ulta is similar to Sephora. And here on Ulta, it has 12,244 reviews. So it has the potential to sell really, really well, but it's not performing as it should be on Amazon. So this is Tarte's description. It's just a blob of a description. Even if you're not creating A+ content, take that little bit of extra time to use some basic HTML tags to format the information in a way that's going to be engaging and interesting to your customers. e.l.f. has a really lovely A+ page. They speak directly to some of those key points. They talk about exactly what the benefits are. They have a lot of great imagery. They're cross-promoting some products that are, even those are thoughtfully curated, because they're the types of products that somebody would most likely be wanting to use in tandem with a product like this. So they're not selling us mascara. They're not selling us lip products or skincare. They're selling us a primer. They're selling us a sponge for application and some of those other face products to help us create a flawless canvas for whatever makeup we're wanting to wear. So lead with benefits. Find the benefit by asking, why does this matter? And then keep asking why until you feel really certain that you've found why it is that somebody truly wants to purchase this product. So if we're thinking about a concealer, the real why isn't that they just want to look good even. it's probably that they want to feel more confident. Or in the case of, let's say that this person has lots of bags under their eyes because they're a new mother and they're not getting sleep. So for them, they want to be able to conceal that so that people will take them more seriously and so that they can feel really great about what they're doing and that the focus won't be on their under eye circles. And so you want to get to those core, deeper feelings of what's motivating somebody to go online and search for the product that you're selling, and then to connect with those things. And it's not to disregard the features. So it's not to ignore the ingredients or the functionality or some of those key details, but to use those features in a way that's going to be supporting what it is that you're saying by speaking to those benefits. So you say, feel confident from morning till night with our long-lasting 16-hour formula. So you're speaking to the features of the long-lasting formula, but you're doing that in a way that's supporting the true focus, which is the benefit that this product is going to help you feel like you can take on whatever the day throws at you. So if you're a little bit unsure about how to do a lot of these things, I got ahead of myself. Let's look at one more example. And here we have on the left a very basic pool. It's just a blow up pool. And on the right, we have what, when I pulled this, was the number 4 in all of toys and games. So there's fairly similar products, but this one's obviously claiming a pretty prestigious place at the number 4 spot for all toys and games. This is Intex's listing. It has 4 bullets that have almost no information. If you look on the right, you'll see Splash Easy, which this is actually a listing that we helped launch last year. They did really well all summer last year, and now that it's warm out again, they're back into the top 10 in toys and games. And you'll see that the bullets here are written in a way that is very benefit forward. It's also very clearly organized and touching on all of those points that a parent would want to know when making a purchasing decision about an outdoor toy. Very similarly with Intex, this is their A+ content. So it's really not doing much. It's missing a lot of those even just basic details that I may want to know about a product. Like, this is inflatable. Does it come with something to inflate it? How do I inflate it? I don't know. It's not telling me that. Splash Easy has some nice images of people interacting with the product. It's speaking to some of those things that maybe make it stand out more, because this isn't just an outdoor toy, but it has some learning elements to it. And so it speaks to what are those things that a child is going to be gaining when they're interacting with this toy, beyond simply having a place to cool off from the summer heat and when parents are going insane because their kids can't go to their normal summertime activities. So if you're not sure how to do all these things, everything from figuring out who your brand is to who your customers are, I've actually put a worksheet together that you can download. If you open up your phone camera and hold it up to this QR code, it'll take you to that page. Or if you go to marketingbyemma.com/etail, you can access it that way. And this worksheet has lots of questions for you to start asking yourself about your business, about your competitors, about your customers. And I also want you to use these questions as a jumping off point to start getting curious and thinking about all of those other types of questions that you can and should be asking. Because the more that you can do that, as we've seen throughout this entire presentation, the more you can be clear about who your brand is, the more you can be clear about who your customers are, and the greater sense you can have on what you need to do to differentiate yourself, the better that you'll be able to perform when you're selling on Amazon. So if you have questions about any of this, here are my contact details. Please feel free to reach out. We also offer a free listing analysis. So if you're not sure about whether your listing is doing what it should be, please feel free to fill out that form. You can, when you go to our website, there's a space there's a banner along the top to go there and fill that out. And that should give you a way to figure out how you maybe need to be thinking differently about your listing, because it can be very difficult to be critical of your own work. And so sometimes another set of eyes can help to point out some of those things that you may be overlooking, or you just haven't trained yourself yet to look for. So that was a lot. Does anybody have any questions?
That was great, Emma. Thank you very much. If anyone else has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the questions area. I just have one question here from Ginny. Do you think that copy is more or less important than the images? And how do you weigh those up?
So I would say that you should not say this is more important than this. Your images are super important. And if you are neglecting those, then are you having feedback, or is that just me?
Yeah, a little.
Okay. I don't know what's causing that, but your photos are important and you don't want to ignore them, but your copy is also important. So like we were speaking about earlier with the salesperson analogy, if you're trying to choose the other, I would say figure out a way to do both well. And I know that maybe feels like not a straight answer, but this is really your one opportunity to make a good impression with your customers. And so if you're not putting your best foot forward, you're creating an opening for people to go away from your page because your photos don't look all that great. And so if you didn't invest in good photos, then how great can your product possibly be, even if your listing says it's great? Or alternatively, if your photos are beautiful, but your listing is lacking either key information, or it's difficult to navigate, or it's just not well written, then that's a missed opportunity as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think what we do with ScaleForEtail, we show people, this is a great way to approach your copy. We've previously talked about imagery as well, but I think as people who understand how to focus on Amazon, we don't have to make mistakes that these big brands make. We can work on doing the best we can on every area of our listing, or our page, of our brand, and our presentation, and over time improve those. So if we can't make the very best images at first, we can do something and then come back and improve them over time.
Yeah, no,
we can do.
I love what you mentioned there. And it's one of the things that I find really exciting about Amazon in particular, and why I love showing these examples of the big brands versus some lesser known brands, because Amazon really is a space where the bigger brands don't have any more advantage. They have a little bit of that brand equity, but people on Amazon aren't necessarily searching by brand. They're searching by product, and they're searching by a particular problem that they have. And so because you can learn how to do Amazon oftentimes much better than these larger brands, because either their marketing departments are overburdened, or they just don't really have the time to figure out how to do it right, then you can really do a great job at showing why your product is such a great fit and beat these guys.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the other thing I have to add is, you talked before about getting into the voice of your customer and kind of talking the way they talk. One practical tip for people is, in the past, what I've done is I've get the reviews from your similar products, from competitors and other products, and spend some time reading through them. You're going to get used to the way that customers then speak by seeing how they talk about things in the reviews. And there are tools you can use to analyze those and kind of pull out the most frequent words and phrases from those. And you can just use that to kind of give you some science about, these are the things, the words and phrases people are using. as well as kind of pre-programming your brain before you start writing your own listing, is just spend some time reading those other reviews, and then you kind of get into that voice of the customer a bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great tip. It's also great for figuring out what those benefits are, because the things that people are getting online to rave about are the reasons that. Oh, can you hear me?
Is it still working fine, Emma?
Lost internet. Are the reasons that, yeah, okay. Are the reasons that that people are getting online to do that. And conversely, reading the negative reviews of your competitors can also give you some great insight. If you have those same problems that your competitors do, then you can address those up front so that you're not misleading people. Or if your product fixes those problems or doesn't have those problems, then you can make sure to communicate that as well, so that when customers are trying to make a decision, they feel confident that yours is really a better choice for them. And another tool that you can use to think about how your customers communicate and getting into the mindset of the type of language and all of that is sometimes I'll even go on social media, whether it's YouTube or Instagram, and I'll look at some of the top influencers in that particular space. So a long time ago, I was writing for a product. It was meant for surfers, and I am not a surfer. I live about as landlocked as you can get. And so I was aware that this was going to be a unique challenge for me because I'm not a surfer. I want to make sure that I am using the proper language and terminology, but also that there's a very fine balance, because you can really easily overdo that. And so I spent quite a bit of time looking at some of the top Instagram accounts of surfers and YouTube accounts, and really just trying to absorb how these people communicate and how they interact, so that I could then channel that when I was sitting down to do the writing.
You mentioned YouTube there. The other thing I just mentioned, if people missed it before, if you have not yet read or watched anything by Seth Godin, please do yourself a favor and do that. The guy is brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, I've not read or watched everything he's ever done, but everything I have watched, I've always felt smarter and better afterwards than I was before I started. One in particular, a short video he did about chocolate. I don't know if you've seen this, but he's like, at first there was chocolate, and then this new guy came along and they made chocolate with nuts, and then there was a whole new market of chocolate with nuts, and they had 100% of the market. The next guy comes and says, oh, well, we could segment this market. We have chocolate with nuts and raisins. Then they had the chocolate, nuts, and raisins market. And it's just a very clever way of talking about segmentation and understanding your customer and carving out a space for yourself. There were 100 chocolate brands all selling chocolate, but only one selling chocolate with nuts. So that guy, for a period of time, got all of that market. Just great stuff. Watch Seth Godin, read Seth Godin. And he's great.
He does, as you were saying, Christian, he does a great job of making these concepts very approachable, even if you're not, like when we were talking about using the language that people expect to see, he doesn't use all of that marketing jargon that makes you feel like you don't know what they're actually talking about. He really does a great job. He has a daily blog newsletter that I get, and it has a lot of great insights, not only into marketing, but into business. And I really enjoy a lot of, not everything that he does, but a lot of it.
Okay. I think that's all the questions. There's one question.
I actually have a couple of questions. So one of them was going to be about, if you're a Brit and you're trying to be American in your listings in the US, what else would you recommend that we do? I bumped into this myself earlier this week. I was trying to do some customer research on, and I just reached out to people in the Amazon space, and I asked them what size roasting tins they used. Now, in the UK, a roasting tin is where you stuff your potatoes or your meats and you put it in the oven and you roast it. And most of them didn't know what a roasting tin was. So they
probably thought like a baking dish.
Well, we would also use a baking dish for lasagna. But anyway, so it's very difficult sometimes actually being an English speaker when you think you know the language, but it turns out you don't. And if you look at roasting tins on Amazon.com, you will see baking dishes, or mainly things made out of aluminium or iron or whatever. Oh dear, we've lost it. Oh dear, maybe I shouldn't have asked that question. I'm sure she'll be back. We obviously just lost her for a moment. Anyway, that's going to be one of my questions, where we go to get those cultural kind of feel to the place sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I look up what I think it is in America, and usually there'll be one or two that happen to put that keyword in, and I kind of, okay, well, what words did they use, and then kind of research based on what they used, and try and do some digging around to get the kind of American version. I think the key thing is just to know that although we both speak English in theory, we don't both speak the same language. So just knowing that you don't speak the same language, especially written, is the important first step. And then
looks like Emma's back, but she's not on stage. Can you get her on stage, Christian?
Yep, just give me a second.
The guru. Oh yeah, you go to people, don't you? Okay, got it. Of course, that's how you do it. All right, so I love an answer. Was that an awkward question? That was one of those.
No, it's not at all. And I think that knowing the language can make it more challenging, because you're not necessarily aware of those cultural nuances, and that there even is a difference. So I lived in Spain for a year and taught English, and they teach British English in Spain. And so I, before that, didn't know that you call cookies biscuits, and I wouldn't have known to ask those questions. So I think what you did, Shelley, is one of the best sort of starting points, and it's something that you should be doing, cultural differences or not, is talking to people, and particularly talking to people that would be actual users of your product, because then they'll be like, huh? What are you saying? Or maybe they'll even tell you, you know what? This is so cool that you're asking me about this, because there's this thing about the baking dish that I use, and it drives me crazy, and it would be so cool, and I don't know why nobody's done this. And so it's not only that you'll make sure that you're communicating with the right language, but that you're also maybe getting some additional market research and insights. And if you don't have a network of people, another place that you can go to is online forums. So even though, there are Facebook groups, but there are forums for any weird niche interest that somebody might have, and you will have enthusiasts there talking about all of the subtlest of things that you would never know that people actually cared about. And so utilizing that sort of information and really trying to figure out where the people that would be the biggest fans of your product hang out, and going a little bit deeper that way, because it's easy to just run a Google search and to see the top results and to call it a day. But that is likely going to leave a lot of valuable information undiscovered that would either put you into problems down the road or just have you missing out on opportunity. So was that a satisfying answer?
Yeah. And then I have another question.
Okay. I'm into board games, and there's a couple of big board game groups I'm in, and often what we see is designers of new games will post up iconography or pictures in the kind of general chat group and say, what does this mean to you? And then you can do the same thing with the rest of it. If you find the relevant groups, put a picture of it and say, what would you call this? And people will reply and tell you what it means to them. But then also it generates intrigue, because people see the artwork in game side. They see the artwork. Oh, that's interesting. What game is this? How do I find out more? When's it coming out? And it starts to get you that initial base of interest and customer intrigue that people, because you're not giving them everything up front, they kind of feel more attached. They want to know. They decided they want to know more, and then those are more bought in customers for the future.
Yeah, cool. You're right. I should probably just put a picture up and see what people do. Because it is a real case of mistaken identity in that case. Anyway, so another one I had was, you talked about website versus Amazon. How much do you amend a product listing now? I'm not talking about the rest of your website, but say I have a Shopify store as well as my Amazon listing. Can I be lazy and just copy it all across, or would you recommend I do something to it?
I would not recommend just copying it right across. You want to think about how customers expect to see information, and Amazon listings are pretty specific as far as how you need to format them, and they're not really how any website would choose to format their information. And part of that is because you have to play by Amazon rules, but also you need to really consolidate all important information into your Amazon page that you would have a whole website to be able to do that with. And then lastly, you have information that Amazon may not allow you to talk about that you would definitely want to talk about on your Shopify store. So if you offer free returns and free shipping and fast shipping, that you can't communicate about those things on Amazon, but you can and you should on your Shopify store. So even though we don't sell a product, we sell a service, our website is hosted on Shopify. And so they provide all these the tidbits. And I think they say that conversions increase in stores by 62% or something crazy by including your return policy on your page. And so thinking about what you can't communicate on Amazon that you do definitely want to communicate with your customers, because people choose to shop on Amazon partly because some of that convenience of having the prime shipping, of having the really simple returns. And so you don't want to you want to make sure that people are clear about that. But then you also, because you're now a standalone brand and you're not relying on that protective wings of Amazon, you need to establish your trustworthiness, your reliability, your legitimacy as a business. And so you want to make sure that you're doing all of those trust building things so that people don't think that you're just going to take their money and run. But also, Amazon, even if you're doing shorter bullets, they're still probably longer than what most websites would have. A lot of websites, product pages, you have a very short paragraph description, maybe a few bullet points of the key details. And then you might have some other sections that either talk about the ingredients, if that's relevant, or directions, or some of the other things that somebody would need to know. But it's not going to be as intense as a listing would be, unless your strategy is. That's the challenge with all of these things, is there are some people also that their strategy on Shopify is they're making ads and sending people directly to a product page. And so then that product page needs to serve as a one and done landing page. And so you need to be clear about what your traffic strategy is as well. So if that's what you're doing, then you're going to need to be considering some other additional things with what to include in your product page, versus if you're more of a traditional website and people would be browsing through your catalog and looking around and going to your site as a whole, not just to that one page.
Do you have any suggestions about how people should format their content for eBay as opposed to Amazon?
I don't have a lot of knowledge and experience with eBay, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. I know that with eBay, you can do something sort of similar to A+ content where you have the nicely designed pages, but I'm not sure what eBay's rules are or all of the things that you need to be mindful of.
When you design A+ content, do you focus more on the branding, like some of those examples that you gave us, or do you try and create a page for each product? Truly,
part of that on the particular product itself, and part of that depends upon what needs to be communicated, because there are some products that you really do need a lot of explanation for. And so the A+ content, since you have the ability to combine the imagery and the text together, it's a great way to do some of those things. Like even with that bad example of the 9-in-1 tool, the survival tool that I talked about at the very beginning, that's something that the A+ content would be a great way to go into some of the finer points of what all those tools are and what they do and why you would want those particular tools in your back pocket. So it's some of it will be driven by what just needs to be communicated, and some of it will be how much of that branding is the business has done and wants to do. I would say don't just go fabricating stories. You can do a little bit of gentle exaggeration if it just makes it sound a little bit better. But in the same way that saying how you're donating to something when you're really not, people see through that. People also see through stories that just feel too cookie cutter. When something's genuine. And so if you don't have that genuine story, then think about other ways that you can still communicate who your brand is that isn't necessarily needing to say, we started out with nothing and we all know what I'm talking about, and we've seen that, and you know it when you see it. So be mindful of that. And branding isn't just about the text. So the branding is also the types of images that you're creating and the types of colors that you're using and all of those things, and wanting to make sure that's all working together in a really cohesive way.
One final thing for me, and then we better stop. I think people have had enough. But how much do you, because Amazon is such a comparison website effectively, how much do you do the comparing to the competition? Are you subtle about it, or are you sometimes a bit blatant and say, unlike this version of the product, ours does this?
Again, it's really a time and a place. So if you have something that's truly better, or something that a lot of people are feeling frustrated by, then you should make that really clear. Okay. Even in photos, sometimes you can have a great, you can show a side-by-side them versus us, so we could talk poop bags again, and they could have the sticker that's opening easily, and then the other side where you just see the ripped, wasted sticker, or a broken bag and a disappointed whatever the case. They have a lot of opportunity for things like that. So helping to create those comparisons is very can be really helpful, but in a way that you're not either overdoing it with the negativity, but also being careful with how you say things, because you can't say, unlike this brand, you can't do that. So you want to make sure that you're not misusing brand names. That's another part that we didn't really discuss, but Amazon is very strict about certain things that you can and cannot say. And so being aware of what you can and cannot say, so that you're not putting your listing at risk, is really important. And some of those things are unexpected. Something like non-toxic, particularly if you're not a US-based business, can create a lot of problems. Oh, yeah. And you would never think that necessarily if you didn't know it. But if you do that, it can create a lot of headaches. So you want to familiarize yourself with all of those facts.
Yeah, I think a lot of us got caught up in the antibacterial net that captured over 30,000 sellers. Apparently.
Yeah, I know. When it first started happening, I was like, what is going on? This is crazy. Hopefully people are more in tune now with that and know how to work around it.
Although I've heard recently that they've been taking down listings that have the word free in it, as in gluten-free or free from nasty things or whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
And that seems like a very extreme version of, the use of the word free. I mean,
sure. No, I think that, Amazon has a real challenge because really there's so many products, there are so many sellers that they end up just having to create these catch-all algorithms that end up penalizing a lot of people that, are doing everything right. Yeah. And just don't have, like, even with the whole antibacterial things, what if you're selling a mold, like to make molds of children's hands? You can use imprint and you can use other things, but there's a good chance that you were using mold and it had nothing at all to do with an organic material. But suddenly that was, so they don't have a way of being more sophisticated with how they're doing that. And I hope that in the future they will find a better method so that people won't suffer from that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I have to say this was fascinating, and thank you very, very much. It was really lovely to walk through examples. I think that makes it so much more practical for people. And I'm pretty sure that everybody that's here has had a really good session and learned an awful lot from you. So thank you.
Thank you for coming through on the chat as well.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Cool. Oh yeah, thank you to everyone for being here, obviously. So just a quick one for next week. We are going on a summer holiday, I think, as the song goes, and so we're going to take a break. Genuinely, Christian and I are not going on the same holiday, but we are going on holiday, and so we look forward to seeing you in Skip a Week.
Yep, in 2 weeks' time. It'll be the 23rd, I think, of July.
23rd.
I like Sanjay's comment here. He said amazing. So
that's lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emma.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Hey, everyone. We'll see you on the Facebook. Take care.